What's on our minds today?
Today, I think money might be on the mind today.
Money.
Money. Maybe we could talk about the crossover of, wanting to maybe dip your toes into entrepreneurship or business whilst also having the characteristics or the traits that we have, like the both of us. I mean, in terms of being like eldest daughters, being hyper independent, being very like perfectionisty, all the traits that have caused us a little bit of probably trauma that we've touched on in previous episodes and probably will touch on, but how that influences, your behaviors in business as well, because I think we've both talked about the fact that part of our double lives are the fact that we run our social medias alongside full-time jobs right now. And part of running the social media, I personally think we act like, there's like a new term, solopreneurs.
Oh,
which I think is the same thing as an entrepreneur, because you're still one person.
Yeah. So why did the solopreneur?
I guess solopreneur is more like you're always you're like a one-man band.
Oh, so there's no prospect of you. But then there are some people that do social media and stuff that then build a team out of it.
Yeah.
So do they become entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so then maybe they're entrepreneurs. So maybe an entrepreneur is, okay, you're a business starter. That business could be anything. And then a solopreneur is, you're a solo starter, but your business is also solo.
And it grows into maybe something big. Maybe you don't expect it to be like a big business to begin with.
Yeah. So do you think you've noticed any like differences in the way that maybe you run your business, if you want to call it a business? Are we calling it a business?
No, let's call it a business though, because it's definitely something that could potentially turn into its own business. So I think the point you mentioned about being a perfectionist is so on point, because when you think of an entrepreneur, I think of someone who kind of goes with the flow. They're a risk taker. They're very sure of like their decisions. They're very just, I think you kind of have to be someone that's self-assured and like don't mind making mistakes. Whereas I think as a perfectionist, you feel like you need everything right in the beginning before you take that leap. Or so when you start a business, you almost think you have to have everything already in place and everything ready and set. And if there are things that you have to change later, that's almost a bit of a failure rather than not just like you molding with it and growing with it. So I think that has probably hindered me a lot, because I do have the tendency to feel like I'm not ready for things just because not absolutely everything is set and ready to go. And I almost feel like making those mistakes later down the line, I almost put so much pressure on them and think they're a failure when actually they're just things. It's like a stepping stone and like progress to be made. Like no entrepreneur, no successful business has ever been created by like having everything ready from the start. So it takes a lot to remind myself of that. And I think I've gotten better with that as time has gone on. And as I've realised that even when you start and you think you have everything perfect, you don't. Like time evolves, and especially in certain industries where tech is involved, for example, there's always like a better piece of equipment to use, like that comes out later. Yeah, there's always more resources that you didn't know about. There's always there's always like new trends that you can't possibly always have everything right the first time around. So I think it's taken me a while to like understand that. But I also think the whole like taking risks thing is something I definitely struggle with still.
Well, we've spoken about it before. Like we struggle to make decisions because of the fear of the consequences of these decisions. And I was talking about friggin' restaurants and like deciding what to pick on the menu. We were struggling earlier trying to decide what food to buy for lunch and dinner.
We were literally in Aldi. We were like, should we get this? And one of us was like, I don't know, should we get it?
But what do you want? Let's go with what you want. Like two people pleasers trying to make a decision. But it goes back to that conversation about like being scared of the consequences, except the consequences in business are actually real consequences and the risks are very real, because, you know, even as like, if I take the way I've grown up, I've been surrounded by a chase or, you know, a thirst for stability and safety because of the risks of this world. So balancing that and the fact that I don't think you can do well in business or be a good entrepreneur without taking risks. And like, I think it's difficult because you can make calculated risks, but I feel like that's still just procrastinating taking the risk. Most of the time.
I think you have to be brave enough to go with even some decisions that you're not even sure are going to work out.
Have you ever taken a risk or made a decision and maybe it's backfired?
I feel like my mindset is very different these days. It's like I don't really see failures as what I would have seen as failures before. I don't see them that way anymore. It's just like a moment to like pivot. So like something will not work out, but I'm like, I make myself glad that it didn't work out because now I can focus my energy on something else. So it's hard to like pinpoint a failure or something that didn't work because I'm almost like, but now in retrospect, you can always look at things that didn't work out and then realize, but if that did work out, then I wouldn't have what I have now.
Yeah, the Chinese farmer.
Yeah, exactly. So there's always like, I'm such a strong believer in everything happens for a reason. So I think that really helps with the whole getting down in the dumps about failures and things not working out, because I never really dwell on things that don't work out. I find it very easy once it's happened. It's just weird that my mindset is so much that before I make the decision, I'm so hard on myself. I'm so stressed out.
Same.
But when I do it, and then even if it doesn't work out, I'm very quick to bounce back and be like, okay, well, yeah, it didn't work out, but I'm on to better things now. So I feel like I'll dwell a little bit, but that doesn't linger for me. But it's always the starting that's the terrifying part. It's always like getting to the stage where you're actually going to make the decision.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the time that I'm most anxiety ridden, because I don't know what's coming. I feel like when you know the result, you just have to deal with it. You don't have to worry about what ifs.
Yeah.
So I feel like the what ifs and the unknowns are the most difficult things for me to deal with, because you just feel like that lack of control. Whereas if you know what you're tackling, and if something didn't work out, you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So
well, it's analysis paralysis, isn't it? I do that. I am in paralysis probably like 50% of my life because I'm always analyzing everything, like trying, like you say, like I also am a perfectionist in the worst way possible, because I struggle to make that start without knowing, okay, making the start is going to be what? Is it going to be the end of is it going to be the end of the world if something goes wrong as part of this thing? And I think it boils down, if you take business out of it, even small things like starting new habits or trying to even stop bad habits, those first decisions, which, you know, people always say like the easiest way to make progress is to make small progress, or the easiest way to get unstuck is to break that big thing you're unstuck on into a very small task. But that small task still has to be right in my mind. Maybe previously more so, but even now I still struggle to make the wrong first move or the wrong first step, because what does that mean for the rest of the thing that you're trying to do? Like how do you come back from that mentally without beating yourself up?
I think it's more of a mental struggle for me. Like I'll get things done, but I'm in mental like turmoil all the time over like decisions.
What kind of mental turmoil are you in? Like, are you criticizing yourself a lot? Are you analyzing things like I do? Or like,
I guess it depends on the stage. I feel like I'm very, like I'll go through all the consequences and I'll like beat myself up about a decision that I haven't even, like the consequences that could happen before they've even happened, I feel like. And then I almost, when there's like a decision, I feel like I'm just driven by fear a lot of the time. So that's why I struggle so much mentally, because one side of me is like terrified and fearful of the consequences, but the other side of me is really like willing to do it, and I'm just like battling with myself. But then when you end up making the decision, and if it doesn't work out, then those two sides are battling again, and it's like, well, you shouldn't have done it, but you wanted to do it, and now you've got the experience and you've learnt your lesson. Now you can move forward with that knowledge. So it's hard, because I feel like I'm just like mentally in a battle with myself constantly over wanting to do things I want to do, but then feeling like you can't really calculate the risk properly until you've done something.
Yeah, you can't,
It's impossible.
Yeah.
You can do all the analysis that you want, but realistically, I know at the end of the day, I'm about to make that decision. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, no matter how much I've analysed it. And that's the terrifying part for me, and that's the thing that like stresses me the most.
Yeah. The opposite of that, as in doing things for the sake of doing them, makes a good business person. But does the fact that we can't do that and we struggle with that and we have these mental battles, does that make us bad
businesswomen?
Yeah, does that make us bad businesswomen?
I think to an extent you have to make those calculated risks in business. So if you are someone that does actually look at the data in front of you, and I think there is an element where you do have to be sensible about things in business. So
I was going to say, equally, there's probably an element of like pure stupidity if you're not doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a big, like, there's a lot of businesses that fail.
Yeah.
Like isn't there a statistic where a very high percentage of startups like actually fail within the first year or two?
Yeah, there's definitely something like that.
So there's loads of entrepreneurs out there, but how many are successful ones? And maybe there are elements of your characteristics of being an entrepreneur that actually do hinder you, even though we think that, being super like risk aware and worried and perfectionist is stopping us from achieving. But there's a lot of people that go for it and they do take the risk, but it still fails. So I think it's hard to determine like what makes you a good and bad business person, because I think there's a lot of different personalities that make it very successfully in business. But I think it's important to take risk, because if you don't get off the ground.
Yeah.
So I think our type personalities has to be able to fight our way out of that and actually make sure that we're starting. But then there's things for other people to learn that don't have that like awareness to not jump in head first and actually take a step back and think about the risks. I think they should be more risk like aware too.
Yeah.
But on the opposite spectrum. So I think it's just like a spectrum. You just got to find the balance. I don't know if there's like a perfect personality or a type of person that thrives in it. There probably is, but that's the very balanced person. They're not on one side of the spectrum or the other. Yeah.
And I guess like trying to be that perfect personality is probably being like, I would say that we're quite, the fact that we're doing a podcast episode on it makes us quite aware of the fact that we have these huge like mental blocks when it comes to decision making, taking risks, getting something off the ground. But then actually, if I actually think about like my social media and the way I run it, I think that perfectionist element and my fear of taking risks has definitely held me back. Like, because I've got it started, right? I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. You're doing it. But I could definitely be doing it a lot better. I think the fact that I am a perfectionist and I don't have that much trust in like the outside world. I don't know if that's a huge generalizing statement. I have a lot more trust in myself trying to get something done rather than like I struggle to outsource basically.
Yeah.
Because I know I could get something done the way I want it done myself. I do not have the capability to do that. Therefore, I slow my business down because I'm not outsourcing. However, if I did in my head, this is my thought process. If I did outsource and they weren't doing it as good as I wanted it to be, whatever that task was, is there any point in outsourcing? Like, are you still taking it forward? I would actually say yes, because I get told off by my partner a lot for trying to do everything myself and not outsourcing for the fear of someone getting it wrong or doing it wrong. Because I know the consequence of me not outsourcing is me being stuck in this one place, moving forward incredibly slowly. Whereas if I outsourced, it might not be great, but I'm probably moving forward at pace faster than I'm currently moving forward at now.
Yeah, I get that outsourcing point is huge, because I think when you've already started and especially when you're working full time and doing a passion project, like a side hustle, you have to kind of start to think about relying on other people to keep it going and actually doing the outsourcing, because it becomes unsustainable for you to be working full time and then basically taking on another full time job to keep being consistent. And that's definitely something I battled with as well. Like, I've thought so much about outsourcing certain tasks when it comes to like whether it's editing my videos but like you said, it's so hard to let go of those things that I know I'm not even great at it, but I know how I like it. So, and I just fear that I'll just be, because of the perfectionist like nature I have, I don't want to end up having to micromanage someone and be like, just really fussy with things and irritate them, irritate myself, or like pay for something and don't feel like I got what I wanted out of it. And then I have to deal with, I have to, because then the people pleaser comes out in me, and I have to deal with trying to tell someone that I don't like something but not being able to tell them, and all those kind of things that I then start to have to deal with. Whereas if it's just myself, I can try and change it myself.
I can tell myself off.
Yeah. It's a lot easier that way.
I do that every single day, every single minute of my life.
Second nature,
Second nature.
It's so hard to
be
like
super critical.
But it's so hard to do that when it's someone else. Those are kind of the thought processes I have. I just feel like it's so much. It actually will probably drain me more to do that. But actually, I think I'm just shooting myself in the foot, because you know how long it took me to get management.
Yeah, you were thinking about the decision for way too. As an outsider, it's like I have your brain, but then listening to you, I'm like able to see how much you're like spiraling, but then I also spiral. So it's really funny. But yeah, you took ages.
I took so long. I was so scared, and it was a perfectionist thing. I wanted the perfect management, and I didn't want to sign with anyone. And I know it can cause a lot of hassle, and I was wary for certain reasons because I've heard of the horror stories. But ultimately, I mean, it's twofold, right? Because when you are someone that's a bit of a perfectionist and you want to get things right, then you do avoid a lot of problems, because you don't just jump into things, and then you don't risk things. Because there was an instance where I was going to go for a management, and they gave me this hefty contract. And if I was the type of person like more go with the flow, like I'm just like free spirit, don't care, I would have just signed it and been like, great, I've got a management now. But I read through it, I was so meticulous, and I was so like, I wanted to know exactly what I was signing, and I read a lot of, I felt like there were a lot of red flags, and there was things that I wasn't happy about, so I raised them, and they refused to change it. So now I was like, do you know what, I'm not going to do it. It doesn't feel right. And I'm really glad that I didn't, because then now I've landed the management that I have now, and I've got a really good relationship. I'm really happy. So I'm like, well, if I didn't have that nature to be picky and like really want that perfect scenario, I could have landed myself in a situation that I wasn't happy. So it's so hard to like, I know that it detriments me in some situations, but then I also know it is a benefit. So
yeah.
I guess it's just trying to mold it in certain situations to not detriment me.
Yeah, and I think it's also, it's trying to see the benefit of the thing you're trying to be more efficient with. But also, I think we put importance or more value in the things that we can make perfect, when in actual fact, if we think about entrepreneurship as a whole, and as someone who's like, if you want to start and run a successful business, your time is probably the most valuable thing. Because you're the one doing the things that are going to end up creating like money and revenue and sales and services and all this stuff. It comes from you and the time that you have. So the more time that you have, the more you can do all these money making tasks. And the less time that you have, it's like the less money you're going to make, technically. This is going down a very time is money rabbit hole, but I'm trying to avoid that. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to say is, by outsourcing or by you getting management, you probably have a lot more free time to focus on the things that not only you enjoy more out of social media and the businesses that you run, but to do what you actually can make more money with, and more, I guess, like you can like create more of the future that you want to create with the time that you have now. And the same with me, like I have less time because I'm putting more priority in like these outputs that someone else or something else would not be able to create as well as me. And I'm actually putting importance on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And I think trying to like relearn that, or I guess like emphasize more that time is more important than the output, is a really difficult thing, I think, based on the way I've been raised, and based on the fact that a lot of my previous validation came from like external things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
think a lot of part of like being on social media in general is like when you're so used to getting that external validation and you're not really taught to just get that from yourself and just be happy from within anyway, it's such a vicious cycle of you want to be perfect because you want people to you almost want the validation from people that they know that you're perfect and that you're doing everything right, or they're like happy with what you're doing.
Yeah, you think the validation comes from what you're posting, not the fact that you are the one posting it. You feel like the validation is from the thing that's posted.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's so weird because because my mindset is that I very much do it for people. Like I post because I'm like trying to help people or inspire, or like even if it's like funny stuff or just to entertain people. So I always, in my mind, it kind of has to be perfect because I want them to like reap the benefits of it, and I just want that like positive reaction. And I feel like when you are that type of character that like almost seeks that from other people, because you haven't really learned to just like be happy no matter what. Like it doesn't matter if people are like happy with what you're doing or what you're saying or agree with you or not, then I feel like you become a bit more hard on yourself, and that perfectionist nature comes out more because you're so stressed about like repeating that reaction from other people or getting that validation from other people.
Yeah, like you know you've set the bar here.
Yeah, you have to
maintain it. It's like you mentally can't let it drop, but letting it, like I think the bar of, if we take just what we do, the bar of the quality of our social media and the quality of our content, if it's like here, I think I need to get like used to the fact that it just goes up and down, but the average is here. And also it's not even like the quality of the content, it's like the message you're trying to put across, and maybe like the impact you're actually having on people as a result of that content. But I think I was thinking back to like the risk-taking element of what we were talking about earlier, and like hyper independence and being perfectionist. And I think there's a lot of me that in addition to, okay, I want this thing to be perfect, I'm a control freak and I hate risks. I'm also very scared to be like reliant on other people, because I think I've been reliant on myself for so long, and I know I can get something done. Obviously we've said that like we can get something done to a standard we like, but the idea of like, okay, now I need this person to do something for me because maybe I'm paying them, or maybe I'm relying on like some kind of content they're making or something like that. The idea of that makes me so uncomfortable. And I don't know if that's just me being like, again, hyper independent and like mentally just like, okay, if something needs to be done, it's me. Because I don't know why. Like, can I rely on myself more? Am I more capable of doing it? Am I just not going to mess up? It's really hard mental barrier to push past, but also it bleeds into like my personal life and stuff as well. Like I really struggle to rely on other people, and like I really struggle with like the risk of disappointment more than the risk of something going wrong.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. I feel like I'm trying to think what I am like in a scenario like that, because I think I do it, but I don't realize I'm doing it, if that makes sense.
Relying on yourself too much.
Yeah, I just don't expect from anyone.
Yeah, so that's literally exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, because I never really like, it's not actually something I've thought about. It's kind of like I'm fine. Like,
I'm always fine.
Yeah.
And if I'm not fine, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, so it's weird, like hearing you talk about that, I'm almost like, do I do that too? Because I don't actively, I'm not aware of it. I just kind of, that's probably something that I'm not very, like the whole hyper independence thing, because I've heard people talk about it online before. And I like the idea of, especially like on a partner, I have no problem, like, I don't know, maybe it's a high maintenance thing, but I genuinely feel like there's maybe like roles, or I feel like I would like to be able to rely on like a partner, for example. But that doesn't mean I need to. It means that I want to. So I don't know if that is a hyper independence thing, because I'm totally fine on my own. Like I financially support myself. I like have my own career. I have my own money. I have my own home. Like I don't really rely on anyone for anything. So that's kind of where my like stability and like relying on myself comes from. But I don't think I have the, like, it'd be nice to rely on someone else. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't feel like I fear relying on other people, just because if I did that, I wouldn't actually be relying on them. It would just be like a moment thing where like, oh, someone else can like take care of something for a change. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I've still got myself if they can't. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. I still think that's still a safety blanket. Because mentally you're like, they can let me down. It doesn't matter because I've got myself. It's like, it's a safety blanket of like not fully putting your heart into something because you know it could go wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But does anyone really, because my question is then, like, does anyone really like wholly rely on someone else? Like, that is kind of a scary thought to me, actually.
Yeah, so I don't know how businesses do it, because as a business, if you're like a fully fledged business with like branches and HR departments and all this stuff, you're relying on like an entire department to function.
Wait, on their own?
On its own. Do you know what I mean?
Wait, I never thought about that. Like, if I was like the CEO and I had all these like different teams, but like I wasn't
in control of anything,
in what was going on, I'd be like,
this is what I mean.
Do they know how to do the job?
Yeah, that's what I mean. This is exactly what I'm trying to like get at. It's the fact that, okay, yeah, as a solopreneur, we're like, okay, I can edit my own video, fine. But if we evolved into a huge, fully functioning business, the business of Farah,
yeah,
then like, how do you like?
I don't think I would cope.
Because you have to let go. Like, you have to let go of certain things. That's
kind of frustrating knowing now. Like, yeah, the penny has just dropped. I think it's so. There's a lot of people that like are successful because they outsource and because they have that trust, or they know they put effort into finding the right people for the job. And even if the first hire doesn't do a good job, then they'll find someone else. Like, that's just the nature of business, right? But yeah, I almost feel like that terrifies me, the thought of like having a business attached to my name, my brand, and I'm gonna just let another person like run it or like a part of it. That is really scary.
It's the same with like franchising and stuff. If you take it in like a similar vein, you've got one brand, one reputation that is meant to be the same across all franchisees, but you can just buy into a franchise. Like, you can just do it and like run it independently.
Do you think at that stage people care more about the money than the like how great their brand looks,
like the cohesiveness of everything?
Because
probably at that stage,
they're such big businesses. I'm thinking of like McDonald's, KFC, like the people that right at the top. And maybe it's because they've just built such a strong brand presence that they do have to kind of be like, well, the money's coming in, so.
It probably is just like a muscle to flex as well. Maybe flex is the wrong word. A muscle to like train over and over again is like making mistakes, realizing that the world hasn't ended, and then being able to do that again. So oh my god, it actually comes straight back to not being able to start something because you need everything to be perfect. It's like you need to it comes back to failure as well. You need to fail to know that everything is fine. It's not perfect, but it's fine if you do fail, and you can just start again. Because in our day and age, like, I could start a business tomorrow, and as long as I've not invested my friggin' pension into it, if it fails, I've lost what I've invested. But am I at rock bottom?
Yeah.
Like, am I truly at rock bottom? Probably not. But I don't know if that's me being really optimistic about the kind of business I would start.
Yeah, I guess it does come down to like the investment and like what position you put yourself in to risk making it work. But I feel like our type personalities wouldn't put a total risk on it because we would have that fear of it failing. So yeah, I think that probably does protect you in some form of like, you're not actually going to hit rock bottom if you do try something new, because yourself won't let you take that big of a risk. So I guess there's an element of like it being a good thing that I think it just hinders you when it just goes too far to the point where you just don't even start anything because you're so worried about the failure. And
but I think that's where I'm at, because I literally have this note on my phone and it's just a load of business ideas, and I've had it for like the longest time. I'm a little bit like my dad, because my dad's really entrepreneurial yet has stayed in healthcare his entire life. It's probably the exact same as me, but I have this list of ideas, and I'll always get like a little idea and I'll write it down. I will never take action on any of them.
But is it reason purely like, is it the risk, your fear of failure? Like, what is the actual reason? Because I feel like I'm quite similar in that sense, but I think a lot of the time I'm just either don't know where to start, or I I'm just a bit of a procrastinator as well, to be honest. And that's why, like, sometimes if I have an idea, I won't get kickstarted because of I've got so much going on. I'm like, how much can one person? But then it comes back to the point of like, it shouldn't be one person handling all
Exactly. It shouldn't just be one person. Like, well, that's the other thing though, with a business, it has to be you for a while. Like, it is us until you got management, it was you doing everything, right?
Yeah.
And for a while, like, I think I've had my socials going since like the end of 2020, and I've tried to outsource and failed.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't like the quality of it, and gone back to not posting that much because I can't you know what I mean? I can't keep up with it. Yeah.
But I guess in that situation, I think you just got to try again. Like, find someone else. Like, don't give up on the fact that you took that step first is like brilliant, because now you're kind of familiar with the process of trying to find someone. But you just kind of need to move on to the next, because then you do detriment yourself in that situation when it's either not posting or getting someone that does a bad job. But then there are people out there that would do a good job. Yeah,
but then I think even creating content is very risk-free in itself, I think. Like, you're not really investing that much money into it. I didn't put any money into starting a YouTube channel because I had all the stuff at home anyway. That was a privilege in itself, but still I didn't have to fork out anything. And like, if I think about why I've not started any of the businesses in my notes, in my iPhone note, I think it's like a mixture of a fear of failure and not knowing how the hell to start half of these businesses, because it's a mixture of like random product-based businesses and service-based businesses. And in mid-2020 I did have an idea, and I researched the hell out of it, like how to start it. It was a beauty-based business as well, so I looked up manufacturers. I did the whole shebang on like how to get started. I did a logo, I did like a little pitch deck. I literally did everything except start.
Oh, no way. So you were literally right there.
Yeah, I was literally right there, and then I just stopped because, and even now I think back, I'm glad I didn't start, because I've since met some founders who've started the exact same business, and I'm like, it wasn't that unique. They have done well though, which shows me.
But do you not worry? Like, so this is my reason as well for like not starting stuff, is because I'm like, oh, but like everyone else is doing it. Like, I'm not different.
Yeah, that's kind of partly
and I
why I
get
didn't
really
go forward.
stressed at like not being unique enough to like succeed.
Yeah.
But nothing is freaking unique. Like, if you think
is.
about it, except for, I feel like we're in a time where there's not really much like new. I don't know if that's naive to say, but there's not a lot of.
There isn't though. Like, there aren't that many unique things, but there are lots of samey things with unique angles.
Yeah.
And I think as humans, we're probably like hugely underestimating the size of like small little niches in the market. And the reason I think this is because I've been following, do you know the brand Odd Muse?
Yes.
They make like really nice blazers and things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the founder, it was either a podcast episode or like an interview or something. I think her name's Amy. And she was talking about how she started the brand and everything. And she was basically saying she had this idea, and she just really emphasized being innovative with it and like making sure it was unique in a way. Like, it's not a unique product. No product is, like you say, no product out there is ever going to be unique. But her angle was like, and still is, a very unique angle on a very, I guess, like general product. And that unique angle targets like part of the market, which you'd think wouldn't be that big, but it's enough for her to have made this incredible business out of it, right? And I think we really underestimate that, probably. I shot down this business after researching it because I didn't think it was unique enough, and I didn't think it appealed to enough people to make it a viable business. But then I'm thinking, oh, I need to be the next like Huda Beauty from this one little thing, and I'm like, I'm not considering the fact that I do have to start off in a smaller niche.
Yeah.
You do have to start off making pennies before you make tens, before you make thousands, before you make billions. You know, it doesn't have to obviously go in that direction. And it probably is there's always these like really unique, really innovative businesses that, you know, start at the millions probably. Like there's a range of businesses that start out there, but I think as a person who is risk averse, hyper independent, thinks too much about everything, I should be more comfortable with the fact that I have to start small and I'd be okay with that.
How do you think you will get to that point? Like, I do think there will come a time where you actually take action and start with one of those businesses.
I think I have to fail. Like, I think I know I have to fail. And like, it's the idea of that, because now I have these public platforms as well. It's like, I can't just like fail by myself.
You have to fail publicly.
I guess I don't have to fail publicly, but as part of, you know, starting my socials and like the whole ethos, one of my biggest, what's the plural of ethos? Ethoses? I don't know. But one of my like driving values is wanting to overshare and like wanting to give insight into all these things that I'm interested in to a certain extent. So I would hate to start a business and like not share the journey and like that path, because that's helpful in itself, because of the fact we're talking about how hard it is to do.
Know, a part of me wanted to like start one of my business ideas, but anonymously, because then it wouldn't matter if I failed or not, because it wouldn't be attached to me. But there a lot of business advice these days is that you need a face to the brand, because that's how people connect with the brand, and that's how people buy into it, because they buy into you as a owner.
It's true.
So I'm like, damn, that ain't gonna work.
You missed your shot of doing it in private.
I know. Should
Although I remember once Patricia Bright on her, you know, her personal finance channel.
Didn't she create a brand anonymously?
Yeah, so because she did that. I don't know if she did it for the purposes of like creating the brand or for it as a project. I would love to do that. If I actually was like so successful that I had spare cash to start and fail a business, I would love to just do these experiments and like showcase them. But yeah, I remember watching that video, and she was talking about like, because I think it was a product based thing, and she was talking about like the ups and downs and 6 month journey. I think it was like a wig
business or something like that.
A what?
A wig business, or like something to do with
wig.
hair.
Oh, so you said wick. I was like, that's very unique. I was like, yeah, the little candle things.
So wigs. I think it was wigs or something like hair related.
Oh,
but she just want to say the name, because obviously then people would know.
Yeah, it ruins the anonymous or the anonymity. But you could do that. Like you could, because you could still share it if it does well or not. But then at least through the process, you don't have the pressure of like being like, oh, no sales today, sorry.
You know, now we're in the world of AI, can't I just create like a fake person to be like, does that be really expensive to do? I just imagine.
What do you mean?
Creating like a fake owner. So there is a face to the brand, but it's just not mine, and it's just not anyone else that exists.
That is.
But no one will know they're not real.
Oh my god, that's an awesome idea. You should definitely do that. I think that adds so much, like, that adds a whole new layer to being able to share it as a case study as well.
Yeah.
You can be like, not only is it a new business, it's a new person.
Owned by a fake person. Yeah. Can you imagine that? I'd really want to do that, but I have a feeling that'd be really pricey.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really high barrier to entry.
To even like consider that. But to be honest, if I think about all these like new TikTok businesses, I don't know the face. Like I don't know the face of Odd Muse, and I've seen them around a lot, and I know she's definitely shown her face, but I don't think of her face when I think of her brand. I think of that blazer.
Oh, I think of her, but that's only because I found her before I found the brand.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because at the first time I ever discovered her was a podcast episode she did, because I think that what made me interested was when she said she was working at ASOS, and then she basically went from working at ASOS to starting this brand in lockdown, and that was I was thinking about this beauty brand that I almost started. I was thinking about that during lockdown, so I was like in that world on social media, like probably like algorithms and stuff brought me there.
Yeah.
And I found her brand, and then it was in the middle of blowing up at that point, the blazer. So I've always associated her with it.
But there are other brands that are like, I can't even put a face to the brand name, but they're very popular brands online. So I'm almost like, maybe they do show, but the thing is they show faces, and a lot of these examples are like clothing brands. So they have models, so they do have faces on their page, but it's just, you don't know if they're the owner or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like hugely needed. But at the same time, I almost, it's hard because even if I like got that right, there'd be something else that I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, what do I do now?
But do you think you'd get into the swing of it? Like if you took something off the ground tomorrow, like if you simply started an Instagram page for a business that you want to start tomorrow, would you keep posting?
This is the thing. And I don't know if it's because I've already spent so many years building up my personal platforms that I'm almost like, do I have the patience to do that all over again? Do you know what I mean? Because I know how long it takes. I know how much effort it takes. And I don't necessarily... I think it would have to be something that I knew I could just do full time off the bat. I don't think I could add another thing to my plate, like as it stands. And I think that would be the struggle for me, is that I already have so many things I'm balancing. And what truthfully stops me is just having too much going on.
Yeah.
Like there's way too much going on. And then obviously you have the risk of like investing in a new business. Like investing money is one thing, but investing your time into something and then it not working out is like hurts my heart as well, because I'm like, imagine all the things I could have done with all that time. Like I could have just focused on my own and grown that. Like I think I would have had all those things in my head of like regrets of even just the energy I spent on it when it didn't work out.
Yeah. But then at least you know you have that to give.
Yeah. That's a very pessimistic way to look at it. I know. It's like making it fail before it even fails.
Yeah.
But
you should listen to your own advice. At the beginning of the episode, you were saying like everything happens for a reason. So it's, I was thinking like that's a very nice way to have an outlook on your mistakes, because then, anytime you make a mistake, it's only a mistake for a couple of minutes, maybe a day or two, before if you go back to your baseline of, okay, that happened for a reason, the reason will show itself soon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're right. I think I battle between like wanting to really go for my career and like try, like start these businesses and do all this stuff now in my 20s. That side of me, but then there's also a side of me that's tired.
Yeah.
Like so tired of grinding and so tired of the hustle. Like I just want to chill out.
Yeah.
I just want to stop for a minute or like a year or two.
Yeah.
Because I am actually exhausted. And I think I get really excited about these ideas and I get excited about the thought of it. And then I do have these like doubts that creep up and I worry about the failure. But ultimately, I think what actually just stopped me is I'm just like burnt out, like permanently at this stage, because there's just so much going on. And when you are like self-sufficient and you are constantly relying on yourself for years and years and years, you are used to it, but you're also like permanently tired. And I think that's what stops me from adding something more, because I'm kind of in a stage where I'm still so young, but I'm so over working hard. And maybe that's because I've been working for so many years. Like even during school, like I got my first job as soon as I could get a national insurance number. Like I've been working for so many years that even though they were part-time jobs, it's not like to the extent I'm working now. But when you spend so many years doing that and so many years focusing on money and trying to grow your pot, and then you kind of have achieved the things that you wanted to. Like I now live alone, like I now have my own place, and I'm like, I feel settled. I just kind of want to enjoy life now. Yeah. I feel like I haven't really had that chance to enjoy.
I think that's really good that
living.
Like you don't want the goalpost to keep moving. Like like, okay, I've reached the goalpost. I really want to enjoy it.
But it's a battle. It's almost like I feel guilty for not forcing myself to continue doing it. Mm-hmm. There's a part of me that I'm like, I can't.
Well, you know what? Do you know what that exactly is? That is the fact that we have lived the life we've lived, i.e. super hyper independent, like trying to do everything for everyone, not really looking inward that much, except now looking inward and realizing how exhausted we are. I think we've definitely never rested properly.
No.
I think I'm getting used to it now and like knowing how to do it now.
Do you ever feel like growing up, did you ever feel like you had to be doing something like when you were living at home? Like for me, whenever I was like just chilling out, if anyone saw me chilling out, I'd get really stressed over it. Like I would always feel like I had to be doing, I don't know if that's because I can't even remember if anything was actually said to me that was like along the lines of I was lazy, or just because I had a minute to like breathe. Or if I just did that to myself. I can't really remember, but I do remember very distinctly always feeling like I couldn't be seen, like sitting doing nothing.
Yeah.
That really...
I know what you mean. I don't think I had that. I don't think I had like any comments made or anything. But I'm trying to think, like, was I ever chilling? I was always doing something.
But like, even when you're just like, you finished like school or something, or like you're just having a break from revising, I don't know, I've always felt very uneasy just being, and not necessarily not doing anything, but just not
having a purpose to what you're doing,
like actually like studying or working or doing what's considered important. Like,
well, that's probably why you can't rest, or like why you haven't rested, because like maybe in your mind rest, like there's no purpose to rest.
Yeah.
So like, what's the point in it?
It actually felt like that for a lot of years. I think that's what screwed me up, like with my cycle and stuff as well, is because when my body was telling me I needed to rest, I couldn't. So I'd force myself, and when I wasn't like tracking things, I didn't really understand that there were changes, and I needed to change my routine, and I just didn't. And I think doing that for so long, it does really mess you up. Like,
it really does.
internally.
And like, I think it's because that like rest itself doesn't have the most consistent like connotation with it.
Well, rest really to me was sleep.
Yeah, so rest is like physical rest.
Yeah.
So that's what you thought, or probably
I thought
still
like
think
I'll rest when I go to bed.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise I have to be doing stuff.
But even that, like the rest that you're getting when you should be sleeping should be like really high quality rest, and that's not probably happening if you're not actually getting like mental rest. And like there's definitely a post I have somewhere about like the different forms of rest, because I think there's like 4 or 5.
Yeah, I read about that and I was shook. I was like, oh,
I get none of these.
It's not just sleep. Like,
and even sleep, like it takes, like I'm currently trying to like make sure the quality of my sleep's like a lot better than it was before, because now I understand if you're not actually sleeping properly, you literally die quicker. But
apparently, if you do have like a bad night's sleep, apparently it affects you for the next like 72 hours or something.
Yeah, that's what
How
I
mad
heard.
is that?
It's
I
crazy.
thought, oh, I'll just catch up tomorrow. Like there was
and there's also no such thing as catching up.
Oops.
I read that recently. I was like, okay, you have to get like consistent all the time.
But that is impossible. Like there's just some
Well, you
things...
say it's impossible, but it's impossible because we're not prioritizing it.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like it would be possible if like, oh yeah, I had a busy day and I know I have a busy day the next day. Oh, that means I'm not going to get like 8 hours of high quality sleep. No, it means I'm prioritizing my busyness over my sleep, which is very easy to do, I think, in this day and age, because you're like, every hour I have awake and conscious needs to be productive, needs to have a specific purpose that's going to take me and my family and the rest of the generations of Gunputs forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
all like
all on
really
you.
overdone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we really need to, well, I think you as well, you really need to prioritize good physical rest, but also like other forms of rest. Even if that means literally doing nothing. And I think Acta on YouTube, I think she's got a video on like, I'm going to be paraphrasing the title of her video, but it's like the magic of being bored or something like that. And I think boredom is mental rest. And boredom definitely, it makes me so creative. And like, I have my best ideas when I'm bored. When I'm truly in my mind, thinking of like nothing, and that, not in a meditative sense, as in like there's nothing in, it's like blank,
Nothing in my brain.
Yeah, it's like I'm literally thinking of like, I'm not planning my next meal, I'm not planning when I'm doing XYZ.
Do you have often moments of that?
If I so I was gonna say shower, don't want that to sound like anything else, but
If I shit.
that's what I mean. I said
I wouldn't even notice until you
I just got nervous. But if I'm ever doing something, because I'm a very, like, I don't know if stimulated is the right word, but I always have something on. Like, I never sit in silence. But recently I've been trying to, like, embrace the silence of any moment that I have. So when I'm showering, I won't take a podcast in. If I'm walking, I'll try and have, like, one walk a day, because I walk a lot, but I try to have one that's like, okay, I don't have my headphones, I probably have my phone, but I'm not doing anything. I'm just like looking around.
Yeah.
And that seems really weird, but that creates that like mental boredom. But that's purposeful times I'm like trying to create that.
Oh, you see, I love silence, but I don't ever feel like I'm in silence. Like my mind is spinning at 100 miles an hour. Like there's so much that I can't stop thinking. I find that really hard. So I sit in silence a lot, or I'm just like not actively listening to anything, or there's not something that I'm paying attention to. But it's in my head, like my head is loud.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, I know what you
So
mean.
that's why I was asking. I was like, is there actually like points where, because even when I'm feeling bored, there's very like minimal time that I actually genuinely feel like I'm bored, like I've got nothing to do, I don't know, like, and I'm actually actively thinking about being bored. But there are a lot of times where I am just like in my own head, just like thinking, not necessarily doing stuff, but I'm like just making mental notes, like trying to figure out like my next move, or like what's going on, or like planning my week, or whatever it is. But there's always something going on in my head, and it's really hard to switch that off.
Yeah, I know. I think maybe like I've heard meditation is good for that.
Yeah, I kind of tried to start getting into that. It's just not something I do hard, like consistently. Yeah. It's hard to create a routine, and
I think you need to create some sort of ritual that leads to your mind being empty. Like I feel like you would struggle to just sit and be able to like, okay, I want to be bored now. You know what I mean? Because if your mind's still going, like it's really hard to stop that. Okay, so in this episode, we've literally talked about every single thing ever, and I don't know how to summarize.
I don't think we can. I think it was just...
Oh my God.
Come on the journey with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a jam-packed episode.
It was a jam-packed peanut butter jelly.
But we hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed. Please leave us a review on Spotify if you're listening, or Apple Podcasts down at the bottom. We'll see you
next
week. Yeah, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.